We now have confirmation of something truly bizarre, an omission that I find just crazy, and yet Zelda suffers. Good morning, Mario, and good morning, Switch fans. Welcome to Bizarro World, where Nintendo makes decisions only Nintendo would make, and there's also a bunch of new updates for Nintendo Switch Online. But first, we've got to talk all about Zelda. What's up, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. I'm audio only for one more day. It is bright and early, and apparently Nintendo needs me to get up as they shout from the mountaintops that the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will not be getting DLC. Now, this is something that I predicted because of the fact that they did not announce it prior to the game, nor soon after, and they seem very content with how massive Tears of the Kingdom already is. But nonetheless, it still shocks me, surprises me, and goes to show that Nintendo is always ready to do the unexpected. Many of their biggest games have not received any DLC. We're talking like Super Mario Odyssey, Tears of the Kingdom now. Some games have received tons of DLC, despite maybe not being deserving, and then games like Super Mario Party get a multiplayer expansion years down the road, whereas Mario Party Superstars can't get any board DLC, even though that would be far simpler. Animal Crossing New Horizons gets one pack of DLC, despite a fervor and a hunger for tons more DLC, and everyone would pay for it, yet there's other games that get multiple packs of DLC when players aren't even that excited. So what's exactly going down here? Well, there was an interview in Famitsu magazine, one of the most popular Japanese magazines, with Eiji Aonuma, series producer, head Zelda honcho, and he says there are no plans to release additional content this time, but that's because I feel like we've done everything we can to create fun in that world. In the first place, the reason I decided to make this a sequel to the previous work was because I thought there was value in experiencing a new game in that Hyrule place. If that's the case, if a new reason arises, we might return to the same world again. Whether it's a sequel or a new work, I think it's going to be a completely new game, so I hope you're looking forward to it. Now, I'm going to break this down and then break down people's refusal to believe this and their copium hopium, but basically, they were asking Aonuma about any additional content and then also, what your future plans are. Are you going to be making a sequel, a whole new game? What's next for the Legend of Zelda franchise? His response kind of addressed both those things, right? About DLC and about additional content, and also about returning to this world, another sequel, right? We've heard talk about hey, Nintendo is going to go this big open world route for Zelda in the future. They love this style, but perhaps they're done with the world of Hyrule in its, current state, in its Breath of the Wild TOTK state. And that makes a lot of sense because obviously they've built up this foundation for what an open world Zelda is. It's incredibly successful. Players love it. I get it. But at the same time, we can't keep reusing the same maps, the same Hyrule. That will not work. So that is sort of the baseline from which I operate, that we'll continue to get Zeldas in this style, but not in this world. And that's basically what Aonuma says, right? He says that if that's the case, if a new reason does arise, we might return to the same world. But he also says, I think it's going to be a completely new game. So I hope you're looking forward to it. Now, at the top of the quote, he says there are no plans to release additional content this time. And some fans are trying to say that this could possibly be a poor translation, and he's just saying that there are no new games in this specific Hyrule. But the fact that he says this time and additional content, whether that's a translation or not, I feel like you can just confirm his motive by the second half of the sentence. But that's because I feel like we've done everything we can to create fun in that world, aka there's nothing left to do. Now, I find this crazy, but I also understand it, and I think Nintendo's plan here, if I had to hypothesize a bit, is that rather than release DLC, Nintendo will have a second boost for this game when the Switch 2 comes out. I don't know that they'll release a separate version of the game, but I think their plan is to aggressively boost how nice it looks, how well it runs on the next console when that time arises. I do not believe that Nintendo has plans for DLC now. I think Aonuma is telling the truth, and I think it's silly because this game sold 20 million copies almost instantly. Like, if I told you, hey, you can go make $400 million in a heartbeat, wouldn't you do it? And that's what Nintendo could do if they charged $20 for some TOTK DLC. But I think the same could be said for Mario Odyssey, and they chose to never release DLC despite that game having the perfect structure for downloadable content in the form of new kingdoms. I don't know how Nintendo makes these decisions, and at times I feel like they seem very driven by money and pure profit, and at other times I feel like they seem completely driven by their own prerogative. Animal Crossing New Horizons is a money pit, and yet they chose to abandon that mine very, very quickly. TOTK could generate a ton of money, and yet they're choosing no DLC. Here's the only silver lining grain of hope I will give you. Nintendo changes their minds often. No plans today does not mean no plans tomorrow. As we've seen with quotes from Miyamoto himself about no new models of handhelds, and then, oh boom, there's a new DS, new 3DS out immediately after. It is quite possible that around the time of the next Switch, maybe there are now new plans for Aonuma & Co. to revitalize TOTK and bridge the gap to the new generation with some sort of awesome DLC. Or maybe a small DLC. I don't know. I don't think you should expect it or anticipate it, but I think there is the possibility that right now there's no plans, but eventually there are plans. That's just kind of the way Nintendo works. And in this case, I don't think it's a poor translation. I think it's just Nintendo's operational style is like, we'll talk about it if it's real, when it's real, or maybe we won't. Like, you never really know. They have their PR speak, and then they have, that's about it. I don't know how genuine they ever are in doing interviews. I'd like to believe that they are in terms of some quotes like, oh, we love our fans, or oh, we, tried our best. But things like this about plans and future, I don't know. This does seem pretty definitive, though, and it has been odd that we are now, 4 months out from TOTK, and we have no DLC announcement, not even a spec. I know some people were holding out hope that Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards in December would hold that announcement, but I think that's gone. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's a thing, and it makes very little sense to me. I get what Aonuma is saying about we've done everything we can to create fun in that world, but come on. You can't just throw in one extra temple, one extra divine beast, one extra big side quest with a fan favorite NPC. Like, there's no way they couldn't have done this, but yet this is sort of the same thing that they did with Animal Crossing New Horizons. Oh, we've done everything we can. No, you didn't, but if that's what you want to say and that's how you feel about the game, okay. I do find this incredibly odd. I find it incredibly strange that you would have a game that's so popular, games that are so popular, fans that are so hungry for more, ready to pay for it, and you refuse to do it. Meanwhile, we have other games that just load their title up with DLC and season passes and overpriced aesthetics, vanity DLC. I mean, it's very strange, but you gotta give Nintendo credit because they still do make insane games. And if they genuinely feel like they did everything they could with TOTK, maybe they feel guilty about charging $70. Maybe they don't want to charge you anymore because they feel like they already got away with murder. I do not know, but please let me know your take. I find this is the most, I predicted this, I thought this is what would happen, but I still find it insanely odd, and I find it insanely weird, and I find it insanely senseless, and I do hold out like a small, tiny little sliver that around the next gen console, next fall, maybe there is like a Game of the Year Zelda edition. Nintendo has not really done much of this in the past, but they have borrowed from other publishers this generation in terms of how they operate. Maybe it's something that they do for the first time with a Game of the Year Tears of the Kingdom pack that is like, oh, it's the hyped, souped 4K version for the next Switch, and it includes some DLC. I do not know. Breath of the Wild got DLC, but that was announced before the game even came out, so we were already operating under different standards, and I guess you're not getting anything else for Tears of the Kingdom. Those are the real tears. The kingdom will not be expanding. Now let's now talk about Nintendo Online. Okay, we got more games, and in fine Nintendo fashion, it's just a smorgasbord of randomness. But what I will say is cool is that 3 of these titles were previously only released in Japan. That's neat. That's neat to bring 3 of those games to the States and to other territories in ways that they weren't before. And one of the coolest parts about Nintendo's online catalog is that they do integrate these games with more modern ideas like online multiplayer and localization. It is pretty sweet. I will say, though, I think this bundle sucks. I don't think these games are appealing at all. We've got Kirby Star Stacker for the SNES. We've got Downtown Neketsu March Super Awesome Field Day for the NES. And we've got Joy Mech Flight for the NES. We've got Quest for Camelot for the Game Boy Color. You might have believed this was a Disney movie when you were little, but it's not. It's Warner Brothers. None of these games are exciting. Again, I appreciate them bringing 3 of these over, but what the heck? I feel like there still are plenty of Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, SNES, and N64 games that are of extreme merit, and probably NES as well. I know that's a quirkier library, and I know we have the most of those. But I find it very odd that Nintendo brings the weirdest ones. I'm glad that they are seemingly doing this more frequently. I feel like we've got a lot of Nintendo Switch Online updates lately. I do feel like we're ready for a new Nintendo Switch Online trailer, and perhaps we'll get one at the next Direct, where they do showcase and highlight, hey, here's what's coming in the future, here's some exciting things to look forward to, like Golden Sun on GBA, like Diddy Kong Racing on N64. I mean, I know everybody is just huge fans of Downtown Neketsu March Super Awesome Field Day, but me personally, I'd rather see some bigger first-party stuff. Nonetheless, they did add 4 games, and it is a smorgasbord, which I do appreciate. I wish this is how they would do all their releases, instead of just one N64, 1 GBA, always like a big pack, a big release. 3 GBA games, 4 N64 games. I guess that's asking for too much, but there are 4 new titles that you probably don't want to try out, but maybe you do. Quest for Camelot on the Game Boy Color is weird as heck, especially because that is a licensed product. I don't understand Nintendo with their NSO, but at least it keeps on coming. Hopefully we see some upgrades and some updates to how this system works out in 2024. And as they prep for the next Nintendo Switch console, maybe one of their features for Switch 2 can be, hey, we got better games on Nintendo Switch Online. And maybe it's like every Friday or something. I don't know. They could definitely schedule this better. They could plan the releases better. And they could pick better games. But for now, I'll just say yay for them releasing a lot. I feel like with the Pokemon update, with the Excitebike update, I think that we have gotten a lot of interesting things as of lately. You know, I feel like it was pretty good, and I do wish that we continue in that way. I'm not going to complain, but I am going to say this is like a downright strange little thing. Very odd grouping of games. Very odd that TOTK is not getting any more of DLC, any DLC really, right? Not like it's just bizarre, but it's Nintendo. I think we got a Direct coming next week, so that's amazing. In fact, I'm positive we do. So for all this weirdness, don't worry about it too much. We're about to get great new announcements. No, they're not going to announce TOTK DLC at the next Direct, but they'll probably announce Donkey Kong or Metroid Prime or something of that sort. So get ready for amazingness. My blue hair suspects it. It's like a new Spidey sense. I'm telling you, Nintendo is about to make things amazing once again. In the meantime, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. SwitchForce out.